KALA 88.5, 105.5, where the jazz is and the blues are. My name is Timothy Reed, a fan of history, archaeologist. I am a bass player and fan of music in Bismarck, North Dakota. I play bass in Green Boots, the Swentones, and Johnny Spud. Yeah, I think my first car was, I guess, my parents' car, an 82 Pontiac Grand LeMans. For reference, I'm old, so I used to deliver pizzas for Godfathers back in the 80s.
Godfathers, huh?
It's my first job.
Cool. How good was it?
The pizza?
Yeah.
Or the job? Both were about average, I say.
Okay. I've never had Godfathers. I don't think.
Being 17 years old. Yeah, there aren't really any in this part of the country. Mm-hmm. But you remember Happy Joe's? Happy Joe's?
Yes, I worked for a Happy Joe's a little bit.
Okay. I have actually met Happy Joe Whitty.
Oh, God. That's fine.
So I delivered for Godfathers at the time in circa 1990 and this was in Davenport, Iowa, the Quad Cities. And it's where I grew up. And my first job delivering pizzas in my parents' 82 Pontiac Grand LeMans, maroon. Look it up. Awesome car.
It is. It looks awesome here.
In hindsight, yeah. I delivered pizzas in that. And to get back to Happy Joe's, Happy Joe's is based in Bettendorf, Iowa, which is right next door to Davenport, Iowa.
Okay.
And I had a delivery, no shit, to their corporate headquarters because they wanted a pizza from Godfathers.
They're sick of theirs. And they wanted something different.
And actually, Happy Joe was in the room.
Oh, shit.
And
did you call him Happy Joe?
No, I was just kind of ushered out, but he did wave at me and smile at me. And yeah, so
that's awesome.
That was a weird story.
That is weird. I hadn't
thought about that one as I prepared for this.
That's funny. I've actually, when I worked for Domino's, I've delivered to Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
And we've ordered from Pizza Hut for lunch.
Yeah.
And we would do food trades. So we wouldn't have to pay for it.
I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Herbert Abernathy III, who is a musician for a band called Valiant Thor and owns a pizza restaurant in Richmond, Virginia called Hot for Pizza. And I don't know if you've ever seen Valiant Thor, but anyway, he's a friend, and I just loved the name of that restaurant, right?
Yeah.
Hot for Pizza.
I like his name.
Yeah. Valiant himself. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, those my first car and my first job kind of went together, really, and I beat the shit out of my parents' couple of cars driving around.
Oh, your cars, yeah.
Delivering pizzas, I guess. That's where we started.
I thought you were talking about beating the shit out of your parents.
No, that would come never.
I like what Pontiac does with a car, especially the Grand Prix. But my life calls for 4 doors. That's why I drive a Pontiac Grand LeMans. There's all the room we need. Trunk space, too. There's even a Grand Prix-style dash. All the luxury we like is available, too. Traveling in style tonight, eh?
Yes, we're taking our new Grand LeMans.
It's a beautiful car.
How luxurious.
Pontiac sure knows how to come up with a 4-door that fits our lifestyle grandly. Our Pontiac Grand LeMans.
Result.
Really interesting. I mean, it's the kind of car that if you're going to have a kid driving around on the road, maybe you want them in a big car, right? So they're kind of protected.
Yeah.
By all the metal.
Yeah.
Right?
From your parents' perspective, sure.
Yeah. But
then like cruising around trying to get to somebody's house fast with hot pizza.
Yeah. So for the mechanic friends out there, right, or friends that might know cars better than I do, I would take corners delivering pizzas so hard that it was hard on the tie rods, I guess. So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that would screw that up, huh?
Yeah.
Oh.
But I drove.
I just thought it would make a cool sound.
Kind of a grinding.
Keep going.
I've learned, actually, that it sounds kind of like if you put a bolt inside a wheel, and it just kind of, every time that thing is going around, it's just grinding. Yeah. So, but I drove that, and I drove an 84 Mercury Topaz that was also my parents' car at the time, and just delivered pizzas, and both of those had cassette players in them. And so I was driving around delivering pizzas and listening to great music at the time.
Nice. Yeah. That helps.
Yeah. I had about 2 or 3 cassettes kind of on regular rotation. This is, keep in mind, I'm like 17.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Okay. So don't make fun of you when you say what they are.
Yeah. So, one was Black Flag's live album, I think, Who's Got the 10.5, if you know that one.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one was like a Stevie Ray Vaughan Double Trouble kind of thing. It would have been a couple years.
Cool.
I forget if it was like a greatest hits kind of thing, but those were just kind of fun ones to drive around in and just get in the headspace and do my pizza magic, you know?
Yeah, pizza magic.
I should give a shout out to, since I'm on the topic of pizza, I should give a shout out to my my brother-in-law who runs a Hungry Howie's Pizza restaurant in Western Michigan. I don't know.
Hungry Howie's.
Hungry Howie's delivering pizza.
That's not his name?
No.
Okay.
No. Uncle Pat. We'll just leave it at that. So, what was your first car? I'm sure you've gotten asked that question before.
Yeah. It's been a while. It was an 88 Beretta.
Ooh.
Yeah. I didn't like it at the time. Faded, red, just sat in the sun for years.
Yep.
Stick shift. So my first stick shift, but didn't really love it at the time. Now I prefer it, you know?
Yeah. Do you drive a stick now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The last few years, most cars have been. And then it would run out of gas at a quarter tank left. Had a digital display, which I thought was cool. I felt like Knight Rider at the time, or like Michael Knight, I guess. Then I would run out of gas because, you know, kit was a POS.
Yeah. My first stick would have been the first car I bought, actually. It was a truck. It was a 91 GMC Sonoma pickup truck that I bought from my sister.
Mm-hmm.
She sold cars in the Detroit area.
Oh, okay.
And
so, wait, did she work at a dealership?
Yep.
Okay.
And I had just graduated from college and needed wheels, and ended up buying it from my sister who was in the industry at the time. I got a loan for like $10,000.
Uh-huh.
And bought it. I mean, it didn't even have a radio in it. Like, it was so stripped down.
Oh, no.
A model to get under that $10,000 limit.
No radio. So in that place, it's just
so in that era, I was, this is a couple years after I stopped delivering pizzas, of course, but I was driving around in this pickup truck with a little boom box at the time, right? That was my radio.
Big D batteries?
Yeah.
Yeah.
C, actually.
C, okay.
So it had to be small enough to stash behind the seat.
Okay.
That was the first vehicle I bought, and
did your sister get a kickback?
Yeah, but
Nice.
she made me kind of a deal, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure she got a
Family
commission.
discount?
I'm sure I got a family discount.
Nice.
Yeah.
She didn't jack it up on a case of you, though.
No, it was good, and it was a pickup truck that I drove around for a few years. Like, it was a transition thing. I bought it before I got married, and then kind of drove it for a few years after my wife and I got married. Finally sold it when we moved to Bismarck. So, hauled around some musical gear over the years in cars, but those were the first ones, I guess.
What was your favorite?
I had a minivan.
Yeah?
Yeah, for a few years.
I like vans. Even mini.
It was...
But they're not that mini. I don't know why they're called mini.
I felt like a kind of anonymous in the shopping cart driving around, just it was a grocery getter. And so it was just perfect for moving gear, but it was, just kind of nondescript. So,
Right.
so not flashy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been thinking a little bit about cars and road trips and stuff over the years. And in preparation, it's been interesting to listen to a few of the podcasts and hear.
I'm glad you've listened to a few.
Yeah.
I always ask people, have you heard the podcast? I had Schweitzer on, and one part we didn't record was he listed off every single car. I mean, I let him go too, and we got to like his 13th car, and I was like, you haven't listened to this podcast, have you? He's like, no. It's called My First Car.
Yeah, it's not my 23rd car. I graduated in 1986 from high school, so that gives you an idea that I'm 56 years old.
86 is
at this moment.
Awesome year for movies too.
Great era for bands. Frankly, intersection of a lot of different styles of music. Anyway, I moved to Bismarck, Mandan in 2002. Just immediately started looking for music and kind of found bands like yours and Gypsy Foot and all the bands that were playing Jokers back in the day, and just,
Yeah, Jokers, which was formerly Midtowner, then Stadthaus, Starlight, then Jokers.
Really?
Yeah.
So that all of that history before it was Jokers, I wasn't a part of, but
right, yeah.
It was just the closest thing at the time that I could find in this area, newly moving to it as like a live music center and venue. And I saw the Vex there, and just props to you guys for having kind of an edgy sound at the time.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope to one day jam out again with these guys. I was talking about this last week, that when we quit, we still had a whole CD and a half of songs that, or a couple albums really of songs that we didn't record.
Yeah.
And I'd like to do that. And now Taylor has adopted some of them, and he's playing them with his band.
Right.
So as long as they keep living in a way.
I noticed that right away in Wasting Tape. I mean, I love them.
Yeah, I do too.
And Green Boots has done some shows with them. But anyway, that venue introduced me to not only the Vexed and not only Gypsy Foot and Wicked Darling. And that place, as we all know, closed down. And where are the venues? And finding musicians through that venue kind of opened me up to a lot of the people that you've invited on the podcast, and just we've both know in common. And so it's just it's been interesting to hear people talk about their experiences. Yeah. Some of the earlier bands that I was in, would have been like in briefly Heavy Water Radio, which played for 2 or 3 years around here and was kind of contemporaneous with that. I don't know, we did a few shows lately, like I mentioned, Green Boots, and of course, the Swentones for 15 years. We celebrated last year. We figured in 2024. We think it was roughly 15 years.
Yeah. So about 2009, you started jamming.
I think so.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Somewhere in there sounds about right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It was. It's just been interesting to meet people. I guess I just keep coming back to how we've got a scene here that, like,
it's changed too. It's better now in a sense.
That's what I'm trying to express, I guess, is that just from the time that I kind of became aware of it and met many other people in.
Which is funny. We talk about this period kind of between 2000 2005 frequently. Yeah. And it was really a high point in our music scene because we had shows going on constantly, touring bands coming through all the time. Yeah. That was kind of the best aspect to it.
Yeah.
And then a lot of people learning that this was a thing and that they could join in. So other people started becoming musically acquainted. It was kind of amazing.
Yeah. So what an introduction to this era.
Yeah.
or to this area for me as a, somebody and a music fan to come right. I was fortunate in that respect that like you mentioned, it's kind of like a high point.
Yeah, it was.
But
then it felt like it dropped off for a while. And that was really due to lack of venues and some musicians kind of moving to Fargo because it's not that far. Or if you had more balls, you'd move to Minneapolis or over to the Washington, Oregon area.
Sure.
There wasn't as many people to really pick up those spots. Drummers are still hard to find these days.
I remember another thing about moving here at that time, kind of, fitting with what you're talking about, is that like the frequency with which venues are having live music. Like we're fortunate now that there are venues out there that where you're going to see live music more than a couple of times a week, but back at that period we're talking about where it is kind of a highlight of a scene.
Right.
It was rare to have, or rare for a place to have its own PA that was good. That was stage worthy.
That always pissed me off too.
Yeah.
There were certain bars that called themselves venues and they didn't have their own sound system.
No, it's just move the dartboard out of the way. There's your corner.
Yeah.
I grew up in eastern Iowa and spent some time in Iowa City. It's a college town, and there's live music like quite a bit, right? Every 4 or 5 nights a week, right? So, and the Quad Cities where I grew up, there people have heard this story before, but like maybe not some of your listeners, But a couple hours west of Chicago, on the border between Iowa and Illinois, and it's a metro area of like 350,000 people, probably, and that's the area where I grew up, right? And so in a city that large, there will be more live music options. So I was just used to this environment of like lots of variety, multiple times a week, and moving here to see some of those, the birth of some of those bands that are out there now.
Yeah, right.
Celebrating their own anniversaries, and there's a lot of love for that. So it was really fun to move here and meet people. I guess a lot of those early bands that I want to shout out, I guess, might be Heavy Water Radio, which is a really fun blues band that I was in kind of I'd say probably 2005, 2006, with Aaron Barth, Corey Kuntz, and Jeff Fesky. It was kind of like hard edge blues, I guess.
I love that last name, Kuntz.
Yeah.
Because it can always be mispronounced.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun band. But I took a few years off there, but again, the Swentones I was playing in with them back at that time. And then also, of course, the Midnight Noise Orchestra. That was a fun one to be in.
Bring that one up. That was a fun band.
Yeah, it was a fun band, and kind of got some experience playing my upright in that group, and fun to play some Walrus shows. What
do you prefer now? Bass.
Oh, on bass? I like to play differently for each group if I can.
Oh, really?
Right? Like, yeah.
So you make it a point to...
the Swentones, I'll play electric bass or upright, but mostly electric, 4-string. In Green Boots, I play a 5-string with a pick. Swentones is mostly finger style. And then in Johnny Spud... Wait,
explain why you would do that differently.
Just make it sound different. Maybe get into the varied nature, of the different material. Anything to just make it special.
Sure.
Even more special, I guess I should say, right? That's all gear stuff, but it's really also, it kind of contributes to like a different headspace kind of thing. When you're playing in different groups, you want to give them all, a little something extra, right?
Yeah.
So what can I do to make it different?
Yeah. Well, I played in so many different bands myself, and I never really thought of it that way. It was just, this is all I have. This is what I'm bringing to the table.
I will make an observation on that. not specific to you, but
Okay.
just in general,
Sure.
that rhythm players get this.
Oh, yes.
That our thing is usually just, I wanted to bring this up. Our thing is just in general to serve the tune, right? It's not necessarily, doesn't mean anything about, how technically you're playing or how
Right.
elaborately you're playing, but what makes the tune sound best, whatever it may happen to be. So,
Yeah, I do.
should I play my half stack at
At this bookstore,
at a bookstore gig?
then yes, I probably should.
The children's library
Yeah.
cotillion. Anyway, it's just kind of something that I've thought about over the years, is that we, in professional wrestling,
Yeah.
you make people look good if you take a beating and make them look good, right? If you look good,
Sure.
if you make them look good, you're doing your job, I guess.
Yeah.
And there's some of that. It's just like what is best for the tune, again, serving the tune. It's something I kind of try to remember.
Yeah.
Ended up being in 4 or 5 bands, and that's something also I guess I wanted to mention, is just how grateful I am for all of the friends that I've met through music over the years. Not only those that I've been in bands with, and I'd like to think that there's a bit of camaraderie there with everybody I've ever played with.
That's why I've stuck with it, But friends for life. You and I don't see each other that often,
Yeah.
but when we do, we just kind of pick up where we left off.
There's a flip side to that too, right?
Sure.
I don't expect you to be just like you were, the last time I saw you. I want you to grow too. Right?
Yeah.
And it's just, I like to see people succeed. So it is really cool when we see people from the past, but
Right.
I want to hear how
Updates.
Yeah, and I just want people to thrive, I guess, and it's cool when you see friends succeed.
Yeah, it is.
And reach points of happiness. So it's cool when we all kind of share this solidarity through music on the stage or recording. Why?
Right.
Well, some of us are compelled to it. You were talking about how you're always just kind of doing your thing, maybe as a bass player or a rhythm player, making other people look good. You know what I mean? It's kind of or serving that tune. I guess that's there's another role for there, but I don't know. It's been really interesting just to see how other people approach music in their lives. It's just beautiful.
Right.
So
yeah. Dang. Well put.
Because we all have that individual kind of,
Right. Yeah.
grasp with it, and so I guess I'm kind of sounding sappy there, especially because I'm talking about a lot of friends that I've made over the years. But it's just been really nice to watch how everybody kind of expresses themselves and grows, and I was I guess 21 or 22, witnessed an accident in a car that I was driving at the time. My parents' 84 Mercury Topaz. I was going to college in Bettendorf, Iowa. Had just left after morning class, and it was kind of rainy, and driving on a 2-lane road by this school I was going to, Scott Community College in Bettendorf, Iowa. Witnessed an accident. A young woman lost control of her car. She was oncoming through a...
like hydroplaning?
It was a 2-lane road, and there was a curve, kind of a corkscrew.
Going too fast?
Yeah, and I think she just lost control. Never got a chance to ask her. I got by her safely, and as I looked in my rearview mirror, her car had spun around out of control, hit a tree, and then gone down into a ravine.
Oh no!
And when she hit the tree, her door had opened. It was weird. I think it might have even been the cause of the accident. As she was passing me, oncoming traffic, her door opened, and I thought, what the hell? Steered over towards the right side to avoid her door opening all of a sudden. And in my rearview mirror, I see her hit this tree, and she falls out of the car, and then her car spun around and went into this ravine.
Oh, man.
And I stopped my car and responded, worked with a couple other people that were also just on the road at the time, and we went up to her, and it was really clear she was pretty hurt. She didn't make it. So she was living when she left the scene, but she passed away, unfortunately.
Dang.
Yeah. So, and it was a freak accident. I was later visited by the sheriff's office. They took my official statement a couple days later. And, I just pretty much just told the officer or the deputy what I told you. But it turns out that they think she might have, been trying to open her door. Or something weird. The inertia of going around a curve and opening a big heavy car door when and she just lost control. Yeah. So
what the fuck?
Drive safe.
Yeah.
Everybody.
Did that teach you a lesson or spook you?
Yeah. I don't think anyone needs to see something like that more than once. So, so it's, I suppose it did teach me a lesson that, wanted to drive safe, but make use of the time you got and be, try to show some restraint. I hope, but then there's also just the random shit that happens,
Sometimes it's not your fault at all.
No, it's nobody's fault. It's just, and that's so,
yeah.
I have a young driver in the house who's 17 and try not to be too overbearing with the dad.
Right. It's tough.
Dad warnings, but it's just,
Yeah, you don't want to be overbearing because our folks were overbearing.
Yeah. And,
understood.
But people, I don't know, just be safe, I guess, because cars are a pretty stupid way to die.
All right, on that, I'm pausing for a sec.
Right on. I love road trips.
Yeah, I wanted to get into some road trip stories here.
I love road trips.
You like driving?
I like driving. The destination, can motivate how much I'm into the road trip, I guess. But I always just kind of like to travel.
How far can you go in one trip?
I used to be able to drive overnight. I kind of liked to leave. For example, I used to take this. I would leave Iowa going to visit some family in Michigan, or maybe leave North Dakota and travel to Michigan, and kind of like to leave at about 4 or 5 o'clock at night.
Okay.
And then because I was often driving around Chicago, and so I loved hitting Chicago at say 11 midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning.
I used to like driving late at night when Coast to Coast was on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and then catch that when you're on the highway, middle of the night.
For sure.
That music. Dun, 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 dun. And then, Art Bell would come on.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, yeah, we're going to get some good shit tonight, bro.
I had a radio show.
Oh.
I had a radio show when I was in college. To jump back.
Actual radio.
Yes.
Okay.
But the idea, like you mentioned, listening to late night radio, for me, when I'd make those long overnight drives, I like traveling through metro areas super early in the morning before anybody awakes. But the radio show that I was talking about was at KALA 88.5 105.5, where the jazz is and the blues are.
Nice.
That was our college radio station at St. Ambrose University in Davenport, Iowa. And I had a midnight to 3 a.m. radio show.
Okay.
I've been thinking a lot about that since I was thinking about coming on, and the idea of what radio was like back in those days.
Yeah, right.
I never really listened to the radio anymore, but back then I think it just had a weird place in our culture. Everybody was tuned into the radio.
Yeah.
It's
Were you doing news?
No, dude.
All music?
I would have a show from midnight to 3 in the morning playing blues and programming. We had a jazz and blues programming schedule for that hour of the day at this college radio station. And that time I was a student in the radio and television production school.
Cool.
Wanted to and thought I wanted to. I had a face for radio, as they say.
Yep, I've said that myself.
And so I had just a short, slot 2 or 3 times a week from midnight to 3. I wasn't cool enough to play the alternative college rock stuff. Have one of those, really good time slots. So, but no, it was a lot of fun. And
did you have a DJ name, like Happy Harry Hard On or something?
No, I was just Timo.
Okay. Oh, Timo. Cool. Yeah.
But no, I didn't have a real nickname quite that.
But Timo
quite
is
that
a
naughty
nickname, like, yeah, you could go by Tim or Timothy.
Yeah.
But I like Timo.
Thanks. It's actually my name. There's 4 letters in my name. So, no, it's funny. Sometimes people will put an extra M in there. And I was checking out one time at one of our, at a local establishment. And the staff knew me, and they had my tab under the name Timmo. And I said, well, that's not my name. I said, you must be talking about somebody else's tab, because my name has 1 M in it. And the guy said, are you sure? Like, yes, I'm sure. How many M's are in my own name? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Where were we?
We were college radio, trips. Bro.
Yeah, college radio and road trips.
Yeah, let's get into road trips a little bit.
Oh man, road trips. When I was kind of preparing to come on, I started thinking about road trips and like first road trips and longest road trips and best destination or reason to get there. And
gosh,
like, sometimes it doesn't really matter, just as long as there's the road, right?
Right. Yeah, for the most part, if it's a far destination, I like to go pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll look and see what's along the way, and if I want to divert, I definitely will if it's worth it. Now in North Dakota, I've taken some of the main highways so often that now Nancy and I are doing the back roads.
Yeah.
And zigzagging to our points.
Well, you're definitely
so
traveling
much funner.
to places. I mean, again, props. Travel is the best form of education, really.
Yeah.
And, some of the trips that you've taken, it's just been cool to kind of see where you're going to. But in terms of mine own, I don't know. I thought about like a first road trip or two. I remember when I was just as an early driver, it was, since you mentioned driving a stick earlier, my first road trip by myself with my sister was driving from Iowa to South Carolina and then to Virginia, using her 1984 Ford EXP.
How old are you?
I would have been probably 16, maybe.
Why?
We were picking up a friend of hers. She was in the military at the time.
Okay.
And we were visiting another family member in Virginia. But like that road trip was where I learned to drive a stick, like under fire.
Yeah.
At the start of like a 2,000 mile road trip, and of course the first few
they're making you drive. Yeah.
And the first few 100 miles were a little sketchy until you kind of learn how to work the clutch. So
so
fun.
A lot of times you're killing the car.
And we drove through kind of mountainous terrain in West Virginia.
Oh no.
And Tennessee, and
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, and then I don't know, there's a couple other road trips I guess that I've been on one time. I mentioned driving to Michigan to visit family. One of the fun parts about that is if you drive 12 hours east of here, you'll eventually get to Manitowoc, Wisconsin, which is about an hour south of Green Bay, maybe 45 minutes south of Green Bay, Wisconsin. And my family in western Michigan, what we'll do is pick up a ferry that goes across Lake Michigan. The lake there is like 50 or 60 miles wide. And
Damn.
so you can drive your car onto this ferry.
Yeah.
It's about a 400 or 500 foot long boat. And
so it holds a few cars.
It was built to hold rail cars.
Oh, really?
Yeah, back in the days, that's the way they used to move rail cars. It's much easier than taking them around Chicago, right? So if you're going to Detroit from here, back in the day, 1930s and 40s, you might, send your rail car to this space, put it on a boat, and then take it across Lake Michigan, and that's a more direct route than going through the snarl of Chicago.
Oh, cool.
So anyway, the point being that taking this boat across the lake, we would get there at about like midnight, board the boat at like 1 o'clock in the morning. It takes 4 hours to go across Lake Michigan. And so you hit kind of the sunrise, and you start to see Lake Michigan, the state of Michigan, after just being on, it's a big lake. So
it's got to look pretty cool when the sun comes up.
It's cool. It's a fun road trip. Went to Canada, went to Alberta last year.
Yeah, it was only a few years ago when I first started going to Canada, and now we hit Winnipeg almost every year.
Winnipeg, yeah.
Yeah. I love staying there. We saw Tool there the other year
at the
Canada Life Center.
Is that
where the Jets play?
Yeah, I saw Black Sabbath play there.
Oh man,
yeah,
awesome venue for sure. We stayed right across the street.
So did I.
Yeah, at the Glass House, Airbnb.
Yeah,
nice.
No, it was maybe like a Hilton next door to that or something. But I made
other side, I think.
I made kind of a one of the reasons I like to take road trips is to go see rock and roll, right?
Yep.
On that tour for Sabbath, like I think that was like 2014 or something. They're saying goodbye to everybody, and they travel through Canada, doing a series of shows. And I drove up to Winnipeg for a road trip and stayed next to the venue. It must have been in like a formal hotel or something, but not a Airbnb. But I love Winnipeg. It's such a cool city.
Oh, so cool.
These dudes were at that show. I met them before the show, and they had seen like 5 Sabbath shows from Eastern Canada, and they were going to see 2 or 3 afterwards, and
they're following along.
They're going to be in like Calgary, and then one in like BC, Vancouver,
Cool.
So it's just like I don't know.
I've never been that fan
to see any band that
to follow them and hit
times.
like every show.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah,
I love it though.
Yeah,
I don't have that money. If I could, maybe I would. I don't know what band it would be.
We're going to see a little bit of Devo this summer. I'm looking forward to that, actually. People that know me know I'm a pretty big Devo fan, but we're going to take a little family trip to see them. Guys have been together for like 50 years.
Have you seen Devo before?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Have you met Devo?
Yeah.
Any?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just one of those bands that kind of sticks with me. And,
right.
We associate cars with early parts of our life, or music or albums, specific albums. And I don't know, I'm still probably the nerdy 8th grader I was when I discovered
I am too.
Devo.
I mean, look at my room here.
Yeah. I like your troll collection, by the way.
Yeah, that's actually my wife's. Oh. Yeah. I'm all the action figures.
The scary action figures. It doesn't feel weird at all.
Good.
Them all staring at us. No, but yeah, I love Devo. I wanted to talk about them. I don't know, we're all over the map, but
this is interesting. How do you get introduced to Devo?
Yeah, so I got into the music, I guess, back at the in the 80s when they were in their heyday, right? And have just always been kind of a fan, and those of musicians, like, we all kind of point to certain bands that influence us, or have just kind of a different approach to songwriting or whatever, or just we feel inspired by in some way. And and for me, Devo's always been somebody that, I don't listen solely to Devo, but like,
no,
I just love where they're coming from with being different, and and just the use of keyboards and lights and computers, and rhythms. It's just always something that's just really enjoyed. Bought a couple albums again back in the days, buying LPs, right?
Yeah.
Bought a couple early ones in the 80s and then ended up being a fan. And then they kind of went away, had a hiatus, but like a period where a lot of people say they kind of came back was like the 95 Lollapalooza tour, right? They're just, and again, I kind of lived not too far away from Chicago and some of the performances of Lollapalooza back in those days were just, killer.
Nice.
Anyway, they came back to do a Lollapalooza tour. Look it up on YouTube if you haven't seen it. It's them probably 10 or 12 years past their prime, and they played right before Metallica.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah,
I'll look this up.
And they would have been like maybe, say, 45 at that time, maybe 50, something like that. So it shows,
Yeah.
how,
Wait, they're still playing. So how old
I'm
are they
seeing
now?
them this summer, and I think they're probably mid-70s.
Okay.
Yeah, and
All right.
they just yesterday, as we record this, they just played the Cruel World Festival in Southern California. A lot of different bands. Look that one up too. They just played, but we're seeing them 2 or 3 times this summer, so that'll be a road trip. Although we're gonna drive to Minneapolis mid-June to see them with my family, and then in July, my wife Anita and I are going to see them a couple of times in Seattle at the zoo. So I'm kind of looking at what a weird venue.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, it's like an outdoor couple of shows 2 nights in a row. So I suppose we're going to be those weirdos that travel
Fuck yeah.
to see one band 2
That's
nights
cool, though.
nights in a row. Had some other great road trips to see bands. Saw Bob Dylan in Chicago with my friend Todd Sattler and my other friend Jason Larson, and that was a road trip. Drove from here to Chicago to see Bob Dylan 3 nights in a row, so that was a fun one.
Yeah.
Merle Haggard opened.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so yeah, crazy. But if you're curious, in 12 hours or 13 hours, you can be at our rate of travel. You can be from Bismarck, North Dakota, in downtown, the loop of Chicago.
Huh.
And
I have been curious, actually, because I've never been down to that part.
I love Chicago. It's a beautiful city.
I like the architecture.
It's one of my favorite big cities. I just, it's just the Midwest vibe is there, even at the neighborhood level. Even though they're very international neighborhoods, it's a really cool city.
I think I'm going to put that on my list because I know we've been talking about just hitting different cities on our random travels. New York has been on there because I've never been there, but my wife has been there. So that's why we haven't gone there. You've been in New York.
Yeah. My wife Anita went to school in New York. And so I went out there early 90s to visit her a couple of times while she was in college. But we were most recently there in 2022. And we saw Devo, actually right by the Brooklyn Bridge. So that was
cool.
Yeah, that was a fun show. They made up a COVID show that got canceled at Radio City Music Hall. That's a fun one.
Yeah,
that was the road trip that never happened. My friend Gus, our friend Gus, and I were planning to go out to see Devo, and circumstances being what they were at the time, right? There's places that are opening and places that aren't, and everybody's worried about capacity during COVID, in the early years of COVID. And I ended up scoring these tickets, and we were planning to go. It was COVID struck Gus hours before he joined, was to have stepped on the plane. And turns out Devo only sold about half the tickets of Radio City Music Hall.
Okay.
Now, in 2025, I think Devo would sell it out. So, and for reference, I think that venue holds something like 6,000 people.
Oh,
something
okay.
like
Interesting.
That. Okay, so by comparison, I think the Bell holds like about 800
No idea.
I think I looked that up at one point. It's less than you think. But
Yeah.
speaking of the Bell Mayhew, for those don't know it, Devo sold out half of Radio City Music Hall, but they got screwed by the promoter that said, okay, you cannot, we're not going to let this concert go forward because we'll lose money, right? But apparently this is Live Nation stuff, and essentially they wouldn't let the band announce, and think of a fan base like Devo has.
Yeah.
They wouldn't let the fan base know about the canceled concert until like 48 hours before the concert.
Yeah.
So think of all the people that were traveling.
Yeah.
And Gus and I were intending to be that. And then as Gus got sick, I ended up kind of learning about it at the same time that show was not going to happen. It's just a weird story, and pretty messed up that the promoting agency wouldn't let.
So you were going to fly?
I was going to fly to New York City
then
in 2021.
Did you get a refund?
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
yeah. I mean, but it was
Tickets
just
are goddamn pricey. Yeah.
Yeah, but a lot of
Hotel.
people didn't. And like, again, think of,
Anybody who drove all the way or did fly, sure.
did fly Broadway reopening at the time. They were like, it's a risk whether or not the show is actually going to go off. Johnny Spud, which is our Devo tribute around here, we made a road trip to play a fan gathering. It was kind of fun.
I think I vaguely remember you talking about this.
Yeah,
I saw you guys play at Laughing Sun when they were on 4th, right?
Yeah,
Did you play there?
Yeah, the old location. We're not really active, but I suppose in 2023 we had a good time driving to Cleveland we got kind of recognized by these folks that put on a fan gathering for the Devo fan base in Cleveland, Ohio. An annual event called...
And then asked you guys to play?
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah. It was... I really enjoyed it, and we were asked basically to drive out there as a really long road trip involved. If you're curious, again,
Were numbers talked
it's 18
about beforehand?
Hours. Oh, yeah. But,
okay.
I mean, it was obviously not going to be a money-making thing.
No.
So, anyway, what they do is they have this gathering of Devo fans in Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
We were one of several tribute bands that came from all over the country to play there.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And it happens every year. I think there's another one already scheduled this year in September, I think. But the event itself is held in a ballroom called the Beachland Ballroom in Cleveland, Ohio. And it's just this rock and roll venue. It's just really great. It's a great place to see a show.
One day?
It was a 2-day event, annual thing. Look it up. It's called Devotional.
Devotional.
Oh,
I like it.
Yeah, so if you look that up, you might actually get something that has nothing to do with Devo. It might be like prayer related or something.
But of course.
In this case, I'm advising people look up Devotional as the band Devo fan gathering in Cleveland, Ohio. So we drove out there. The members of the local tribute group called Johnny Spud on an epic road trip. So that would be my friends Gus Lindgren, Richard Lowen, Roger Norquist, and Jordan Dittis. Yeah, so it was a couple hours down the road and having a great time driving along. And eventually we had the plan to pick up Roger at the airport on the way out. He was coming in from a family trip, and so that went off really well.
Oh, what?
And
where was he flying to?
He had been visiting his family, and yeah, I mean, it was just really smooth how it all worked out. We just kind of, the four of us minus Roger, kind of on the road for a few hours, and then we swoop into the airport and pick him up. And I think we stopped for like a total of 30 seconds. It was a real smooth.
What the hell?
Yeah, and
Perfect.
then about another like 9 or 10 hours later, we get to Cleveland, played in this ballroom, and there were a lot of Devo fans in town for this event, and it's a road trip for the books. So we ended up having it was kind of fun. We went to meet a lot of other Devo fans down at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame down there, which I recommend. It's pretty commercialized, but it's pretty cool to like walk through and see like, you know, stage worn outfits or instruments.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like as far as the instruments in the museum that I thought.
So did you watch the other bands and compare yourselves, or say like, we're better than these guys?
Oh no,
we're more Devo than they are.
No, well, there's a little bit of that, but like it's really everybody's kind of approaching it with like, this is our spin on some of Devo's material, and I would say that we kind of like tried to do like our thing, you know, which was kind of a tribute to what they play, right? So,
sure.
But other bands like, you know, don't necessarily feel compelled to like play Devo material. I mean, it was just a really positive experience. Some really interesting bands.
So it wasn't only Devo songs?
No.
Okay.
No. But a lot of people did play the same material over and over.
Sure.
It's just their spin on it.
Yep.
Yeah. But no, it's not just redundant set after redundant set. But there was a real great band out there I'll mention called the Fantastic Plastics. They're worth looking up. That's a 2-piece keyboard and guitar player. They're really interesting. Let's see. There was another band from Wisconsin that played, and they played more or less a straight Devo set, kind of like we did, kind of as in the style of Devo versus.
Cool.
Yeah. I don't know. It's like, you got to love tribute bands. Like,
yeah.
Like I
well,
love,
that's what,
I
like,
love Weird
do.
Al, right? You know,
Yeah.
It's like Weird Al's got like.
Did you see him when he played in Bismarck?
Oh, I've seen him a couple of times. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's
Cool.
great. Yeah, but he's got like, you know, his parodies of other people's work.
Yeah.
And then he's got his music that's in the style of somebody.
I don't know if I've heard it.
Like an example might be if Weird Al played a Bob Dylan song that Bob Dylan never wrote.
Okay.
And there's a Devo Weird Al nexus there with the song called Dare to Be Stupid, which is exactly that. And Devo has called it the best Devo song that we never wrote.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that one's a good one to look up too. But the whole tribute thing is it's kind of fun, but ultimately, you know, it's cooler to maybe make your own stuff. You know, I chose bass because my neighborhood band at the time, I think I was 8th grade when I first started playing. I had a friend down the street who played, you know, this is the era of pointy guitars, right? And
okay.
We wanted to be Van Halen and Motley Crue back in the day, you know?
Cool.
And
did you grow your hair out?
Timo had long hair at one point. Yes. It was a glorious period.
Glorious.
No, but my neighborhood band, I had a friend who was taking guitar lessons from the same guy I was taking guitar lessons from, and I had another friend a block over or so, and he played guitar, and we knew a weird kid down the street that had played drums. So that's like 8th grade.
A weird kid down the street that played drums.
He was, and more importantly, is his parents would let us practice at his place.
Oh,
so,
hell yeah.
Mishmash of bands, and we were playing like probably the same 3 or 4 songs over and over through this oversized PA that we rented from the local music store. Like, of course, the only PA they had for 4 8th graders to rent was this thing with speakers like the size of refrigerators, just, you know, huge subs. It was comical in hindsight. Like, it was just, and we'd play same Aerosmith song and a Rat song, and we played a Van Halen song. Jamie's crying. So that was a fun one.
And you were on bass?
I was on bass because the other guys played guitar, right? So they needed the neighborhood bass player, I guess, your friendly neighborhood bass player.
You had your own bass?
I did. My mom took me to a music store. McKay Music bought me a PV bass. My first bass was a PV T40, which is kind of like putting a boat anchor around your neck because it's heavy, and it's like many PV guitars. It kind of has, especially in the 80s, it had kind of like a country kind of background, right? But they're a fun instrument to play.
You ever play with school?
Not in an organized fashion. I would go in after the jazz band was done and mess around on the upright bass that the school had. But it's kind of interesting. Like I would eventually get an upright bass like in 2007, roughly 25 years after I started playing electric bass.
How was that?
I felt like it was, just a plateau that I'd just broken out of, I mean, like that's kind of speaks to like just learning and how, never really being satisfied with a plateau,
Right.
Try to keep doing something different, but in this
case. So was this for Midnight Noise Orchestra? Or
yeah,
beforehand?
I guess I played it a little bit at the time. I just wanted to do something different. I'd always wanted one. Ended up buying one, and it's just a whole different beast, as others can confirm. And it's kind of like, much different muscles, different. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's much more of a physical thing. And it's kind of like moving.
But it looks cool.
Well, it's kind of like moving small furniture around, really. But I don't know. It's just a different soul to playing electric. I don't play my upright as much as I should, to be honest, anymore. But I try to pull it out a few times a year and take it to gigs.
Yeah, it's got to be a bitch to move, though.
Yeah, it's not especially heavy, just light but bulky.
Big.
Yeah, it's awkward and
takes up a lot of space in the car.
Yeah,
getting it through a door.
Yeah. Used to stand on top of it back in the Midnight Noise Orchestra days. Those were fun. I'm not sure I could climb up on top of it these days, but it was fun to stand on top of it and play it.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like kind of set it off to the side and crawl up on it. It was, and then later on, like when I've played sometimes with the Swentones, I've been playing it, and like little kids will come up and want to play it. It's just like one of those instruments that like people feel drawn to.
Yeah, they can just touch themselves. Yeah. You're not
So,
swatting them?
No. They can touch themselves.
All right, man.
Yeah. I've enjoyed this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you for getting
sorry,
nostalgic
I'm kinda
with me.
all over the place.
This is
tend to not
perfect.
be very organized.
I like all this
on the weekend.
Yeah, what do you got coming up for the next year?
Well, in the short term, Swentones are continuing to play. We're opening at the Bismarck Parks and Rec location down at Sibley Park. I think that's June 29th, I think. It's
okay, please let me know, because I camp down there a lot.
Thursday, that's June 26th. And the Swentones are playing down there to kick open the summer concert series they're having down there.
Okay.
And then Green Boots is playing at Laughing Sun Brewing with another band that I'm really excited about lately called Harsh Light. And since we've been talking about young kids and what it was like, to start playing music and playing out. These kids are high school students and sons and daughters of local musicians, and they've got their own sound, and it's really cool.
Heck yeah.
They're going to join us
awesome.
for this. These guys are like high school students, but they rock, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, they totally rock. Yeah.
At some of those bands, like when we were younger, that we saw. And these kids were only like 18, 19.
But these kids are 17, and they're playing with Green Boots. And it's Matt Foster's birthday at that show, so we're
nice.
Yeah, we're going to have some fun. Yeah, Matt plays guitar in that band in Green Boots, and Ben Thompson plays drums. So,
Are you going to be going to any festivals yourself, seeing any other bands?
I don't know. Something always comes up. Actually, I just bought a couple of tickets to see the Melvins in Fargo in September. So
I'm going to see Backstreet Boys in
Ooh.
Fargo. Yeah. I don't know why. Just happened.
That sounds fun.
Yeah.
When's that?
July something.
They're back.
Maybe June. I don't know. Yeah, they're back. I got to figure that out.
I have a friend from work who is just a diehard Donny Osmond fan.
Okay.
I know this friend through work, and she has been a Donny Osmond fan for like 40 years and will travel like long distances to see in the way that I would Devo. So I appreciate that. But like whatever you're into, I encourage you to do it. You know, I love travel. I love music, and I just want to see people succeed.
Before you go,
okay.
You mentioned that you visited, I think, 30 some states.
Well, I actually, in preparing for the interview today, I was thinking, how many states have I driven through? And I kind of figured 36.
36. So you got 14 left.
Yeah, 14 left.
So is this on the radar? Like you want to do this, or was this just accidentally because
not consciously
you travel?
Trying. I was just trying to think of places that I know, since the podcast.
Yeah, but now that you've done 36, I mean, consciously you got to be like, wow, I got to hit those now.
But that was with a car. That was like because of the name of your podcast, I was trying to think of like places that I'd actually driven a car. And I was like, I've probably driven over 50 miles in some states, right? So I'm not talking about like states that you fly into,
right?
And then you touch down for an hour. Yeah, it turned out to be like 36, but yeah, I'd like to try to get more places.
So that'll mean more touring then.
More road trips. I'm not.
More road trips in general.
I wouldn't say that I am touring much. I'm casually sliding through.
Okay. Now, 14 of those. Why not?
It's
spots? What area?
I've never been to Alaska or Hawaii, so that leaves 12. And then just by looking at a map, I kind of realized there's some spots like in the extreme southeast I've never been to.
Okay.
Florida or Alabama or Mississippi. I've flown into Louisiana, but never driven there, so I didn't include that one. But anyway, it was just kind of a nerdy list to make. I like to make lists.
Yeah, I do.
I'm a nerd.
I am a nerd. Thanks for coming over. You're in good company, bro.
Thank you, man. This has been a lot of fun.
All right. We'll talk soon.
Peace. Check on the mic. This is Timo.